I think we're going to go ahead and start. My name is Al Giles. I graduated in 1976, way back, probably before most of y'all were born. And Steve Niemeyer, who's been the president of the National Alumni Association, asked me to do this because he had a work commitment today. I, interestingly enough, went to school, graduate school here with Frank Curtis, who will be the speaker today. We overlapped a year. He graduated in 77. He did his undergraduate degree at UT, and he grew up in Temple. But as you can see, as you'll see when he comes up here, he hadn't totally grown up. And he's also, he's done about 40 years of work in human resource development and administration, and that's his real love, and that's what he's going to talk to you about today. He now is managing a very talented wife he has, who's a great oils artist. I'm lucky enough to own some of her art. And so he's managing her business for her, so he's transitioned real easily into that. So I think I'll just let Frank go ahead and tell you about his life and his world. Thanks.
Thank you, Al.
Surely.
Just for the record, I graduated before you did.
Oh, you're 75, that's right.
Yeah. Well, I want to tell you it's a real pleasure to be here at the LBJ School as an alumni. At my age, it's nice to be anywhere. I've got a lot of great memories of this place, and like you, I used to sit in this very room and eat and listen to speakers, and a lot of them were boring, and I hope I'm not. But all of that seems just like yesterday. It's always fun to walk the halls of LBJ School afterwards, and a lot of things are the same, and some things are different. Just to let you know something about me, I was born in 1941. Now that's before World War II was even started, and for those of you who aren't real strong in math, that makes me 66 years old, or as I like to say, 66 years young. I graduated from the LBJ School in 1975, as I like to say, before they ever had electricity even strung up here to the hill. But that's not true. But that was 32 years ago that I graduated from the LBJ School. So I realized when I was writing this that I graduated from the LBJ School before most of y'all were born. And that's just the way it is. 66 years, some people say that's pretty old, but it doesn't seem old to me. I've slowed down a little bit. I've been hauling rock this weekend. I've got an achy shoulder. I got an achy hip. But hey, I feel as young as I ever did. And I'm not old. To me, old age is somebody that's 15 years older than I am. And there's two things I've learned about aging. One is that growing old is mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. And the second thing is the secret to staying young is to live an honest life, to eat healthy foods, don't drink and smoke too much, sleep 10 hours a night, and lie about your age. When I went to the LBJ School, we studied Social Security and Medicare. Now I'm on Medicare, and I'm receiving Social Security. The Beatles song is The Long and Winding Road, and that's what I entitled to talk. The long and winding road, the song goes, leads me to your front door. Well, actually it led to the student lounge, but anyway, I want you to come walk with me on that winding road that I call my career path. I graduated from UT Austin in 1965 after growing up in Temple, Texas. All my life, I wanted to help people. I grew up in a family of physicians. My father was a physician. My grandfather was a physician. My uncle and my great-uncle were physicians. They were Dr. Scotts that started Scott and White Hospital up in Temple, which is a wonderful healthcare facility. With me, when I was growing up, I never was asked, Frank, what are you going to be when you grow up? They always asked me, Frank, what kind of a doctor are you going to be? And I just grew up thinking I was going to be a doctor until I went to college and I took freshman biology and chemistry. And I knew right then that I didn't want to study biology and chemistry for 8 more years. So I came to UT Austin, and I found that I really got interested in what was happening in the society and how people think. Why do they act the way they do? UT Austin in the early 1960s was really an exciting place to be, especially for a guy from a little town of Temple, Texas. I was exposed to so much, not necessarily good, but I was exposed to so much, and I learned a whole lot about the world. And I found myself wondering about economic and social problems of the world and social injustices. I mean, that's what I was drawn to. And remember, it was the 1960s, and President Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." Well, man, we believed it, I want to tell you. I mean, a lot of us did. And that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to find something to help people. And in 1965, after I graduated from UT Austin, I was really fortunate to find a job here in Austin with the Federal U.S. Office of Economic Opportunity. That's an agency that no longer exists, but it was the agency that administered the War on Poverty of LBJ's Great Society. That began my career, in which I always had 2 personal goals. One was I wanted to make the world a better place, and secondly, I wanted to assist people to have equal opportunity and justice. Now, of course, how do you live that out? Well, that's the story of my career. But anyway, the 60s were great times if you were interested in human service. Remember, I lived in the time that LBJ was president. I was working in the time LBJ was president. And his goals for the country and my personal goals, we coincided about society. As a 25-year-old, I was helping to implement LBJ's Great Society program by working in the War on Poverty. From 1965 to 1973, I worked for OEO, the Office of Economic Opportunity. I helped local communities in our 5-state region set up nonprofit corporations that administered the War on Poverty in their community. 40 years later, today, many of these agencies are still in existence. They tend to be in the rural areas, but I live in Hays County in Wimberley, and there's a community action agency that serves Hays and Blanco and Williamson and a lot of the rural counties around here. Those were exciting times in the War on Poverty. The War on Poverty was not popular with everybody because there were a lot of people that didn't want things changed, and they wanted to keep minorities in their place at that time. The War on Poverty was all tied up with the Civil Rights Movement at that time, so there's a lot of excitement to it, but there was a lot of negative stuff going on. A couple of stories from the War on Poverty. As a 26-year-old, I was sent out to rural New Mexico, Roswell, New Mexico. We were trying to set up a Head Start program there, and it was in several counties. And my job in one day was to go around and talk to several superintendents of school. And there was one superintendent of school in Roswell that I didn't get to see. There was only one plane a day out of Roswell. And if you miss that plane, you're stuck. And I caught the plane because as Christopherson said, I'd enjoyed as much of that as I could stand. So I didn't meet the superintendent of the Roswell schools. It wasn't 2 days later that I got a memo, me, Frank Curtis, from Sergeant Shriver, the director of the Office of Economic Opportunity, that wanted to know why I had not met with the superintendent of the Roswell schools. And it turns out that the superintendent called a senator, the senator called the White House called Sergeant Shriver at OEO, and he sent this memo down to me. And what I learned from that, it was pretty exciting, and that was that I was 3 steps away from the president. Another fun experience in the War on Poverty was a part of a community action agency had an elected part of it had a board of directors, and at least a third of them had to be elected representatives of the poor. And I was working in Northeast Louisiana, which is really the old South. And in 1966, 67, race relations were not that great. And the board elections in Lake Providence, Louisiana, were really, really exciting. The whole community got interested in it, and it turned out that in the election for the Community Action Agency Board, there were more people that voted in that election than voted in the school board election 2 months before that. That was just astounding to me. Things weren't always great. I worked with San Antonio and setting up their anti-poverty agency, and they got started, and they didn't go down the road that the feds that we thought they should go down. They were giving too much money to certain groups that really shouldn't be getting it. And we drew a line in the sand, and I had to go down there one night and tell them, you've either got to do it this way or we can't fund you anymore. And there was booing and hissing and all sorts of things. But anyway, the meeting got over, and I went out to my car, which was a government car. That was my big mistake. Went out to get in my car to drive home to Austin, and all 4 tires were slashed. It was like, ooh, I'm glad it wasn't me that got slashed here. And the final story I want to tell you about was about the establishment of a Head Start program in Stonewall, Texas. As many of you know, Stonewall, Texas is the home of LBJ's ranch. And LBJ realized that we hadn't funded a Head Start program in Stonewall yet, and the word came down that you need to fund really quickly a Head Start program in Stonewall. And I remember my regional director was Walter Richter at that time, and Al and I know Walter. Walter's just died a couple of years ago, but he's a great man, honest man. He was a man that I've often asked myself, not what would Jesus do, but what would Walter do in this situation? Anyway, Walter got the order to fund the Head Start program, and he called me in along with a couple of others, and he said, I want you to go down there to Stonewall and help set this up. But he said, but I really feel bad about this. I don't know whether we really should bow to the political pressure, blah, blah, blah. And we kind of looked at Walter and said, Walter, it's President Johnson that wants this, and there's poor kids down in Stonewall, Texas, just like there are somewhere else. But anyway, we ended up funding the Head Start program in Stonewall, and it's still there. You can see it at the church that's right across from LBJ's ranch. Well, I've got to tell you, I'm proud to have worked in the War on Poverty. There are many programs that were started then which are still alive. There's Head Start, youth programs, Job Corps, Vista, neighborhood centers, employment programs, health programs. And the controversial idea that the War on Poverty had of what was in the law was maximum feasible participation of the poor in the direction of those programs. That was a spark that got many people interested in the politics and changing the world, and through the War on Poverty thing. It led to a great deal of leadership development for minorities in the United States, and I've always been pleased that I had a part of that. But all good things have to come to an end, and President Nixon came in and decided that the War on Poverty was not what this country needed, and it was really starting to wind down because of the Vietnam War, and then when Nixon got elected, there was he didn't want to have the program, and I decided once again that it was time for me to make a change, and it was at that point I realized that I really didn't know very much about about government, and I was lucky enough to get accepted into the LBJ school in 1973. And that was we were the third class in the school here. And I got to tell you, I've been out working for 8 years, and to come back to school, it was really hard for me. Going to the school is very demanding, as it is now, I know. Thanks to teachers like Chris. Chris is my friend, so he's taught me everything about economics that I know.
I came to do the graphs.
I remember at some point in my LBJ school experience talking to one of the deans, and I was saying, it's too hard. This is too hard. We can't learn all this stuff. And he just looked at me and said, "Frank, you've got to run faster." And of course, things have changed so much, especially in the area of technology. When I was at the LBJ school, there were no computers. There was not a computer in this building. The computer was over at the tower, and it served everything at UT. And what we would do was we'd go up on the third floor, and they had a room where you would do punch cards. And you'd punch up these cards and then take them over to the UT Computation Center, and they'd run the computer program for you. And it was, compared to today, it's ridiculous. But that's how old I am, I guess I'm saying. I was in school here from 73 to 75, and that was also the time of Watergate. And I got to tell you, it was a great time to be at the LBJ school. There wasn't a day that I went to class where we didn't, in our class, talk about what was developing in Watergate, what the constitutional issues were, what was going on. It was a great time with great teachers to talk about that and to get their insight. I think at the LBJ school, I really learned to think about public policy. Before that, I'd just been doing it. At the LBJ school, they taught me how to think about policy, what's good policy, what's bad policy, what goes into it. I learned how to research a subject. I learned how to organize the data that I had. I learned how to write a paper. I learned how to talk and organize, although this talk may dispute that, but anyway. And I also learned about budgets. And let me tell you, budgets, pick it all up, because budgets are very important, no matter what you go into. Follow the money. That'll tell you what happens. And on a personal level, while going to the LBJ school, because it was so difficult, I mean, I was married, I had 2 children that were less than 5 years old. It was really demanding, and I kind of got the feel for learning how important it is to have balance in your life, to balance your work, or your school in this case, to balance your private life, your family, and to balance your taking care of yourself. All 3 of those things are very important, and you have to do it all the rest of your life, or you end up injuring one part of that balance thing. While I was at school, Lady Bird Johnson was very active. President Johnson had died the year before, but she was very interested in the LBJ school, and she was over here all the time. She would meet with the students. Some of the times we'd go over to the library. She had an office over there, and we'd meet with her. She just wanted to know what was going on. And then once a year, she'd have us down to the ranch for a barbecue and spend all day at the ranch. That was fun. It was fun things, and you didn't have to be around her long to know she was a great lady, great lady. I have to tell you that I've never once regretted coming to the LBJ school. As I look back on it, it was really a great experience for me. Enough so that I stayed active in the Alumni Association for a long time, and I urge you to. I was president of the National Alumni Association for a couple of years, and I think the school was very good for me. It really helped me. In 1975, I graduated from the LBJ school, and I went to work with a state agency here in Austin, the Texas Department of Community Affairs, who help run the state office for programs for the low income and the war on poverty. And you might ask, Frank, why did you go to the state? In my career, I always wanted to go where the action was. Action as far as what I was interested in. In the 60s, it was with the federal government. When I got out of the LBJ school in the 70s, the action was with state government, much more than with the federal government. And in the 1990s and in the 2000s, as far as I'm concerned, the action is with nonprofit corporations. If you want to help people and you want to be close to them. So much has changed about the way the federal government works. I was thinking recently that when I was working in the war on poverty, we set up Head Start programs all over the United States in less than a year. We started a new employment program to put thousands of people to work, and we did that in 3 months. And then I look at what the federal government did after Katrina, and it took FEMA 3 months to get trailers to New Orleans, and it gives me great outrage, and that's why I like to go where the action is. It's not, as far as I'm concerned, the action's not with the federal government right now. If you're interested in human service programs, at the state level, I learned about management and supervision of people. And I also learned how to put something that helped me all the rest of my life. I learned how to put different funding resources together in order to develop programs to help the low income. I tried to put programs together that use federal resources, state resources, and local and private resources for local programs to help people at the local level. And I'm proud to say that in 1978, the Texas office I was with was named the best state OEO office in the country. And at that time, it administered about $8 million in programs, and we were recognized by the federal government as being the state office with the highest resource mobilization of any in the country, and I'm proud to have been a part of that. Once again, all good things have to come to an end, and the next position I took was with something called the Center for the Study of Human Resources, whose director is Chris, and it's a part of the LBJ school. And I was a part of a project that helped design a management system for the U.S. Department of Labor programs that were funded in 76 communities across the country. And these programs were run by nonprofits, and they were designed to help women and minorities get into what was called non-traditional jobs. Non-traditional for that target group. At that time, everybody knew a woman should become a teacher, things like that. Well, if a woman wanted to become a steel worker or something like that, that's what this program was about. It was getting women and minorities, and there are a lot of jobs at that time that weren't doing minorities, and so it was trying to get minorities into positions where they were not, they didn't have any numbers at that time at all. And we worked with local groups and national groups like the National Urban League and the AFL-CIO, and it was a great experience for me. In 1983, I took a right turn in career-wise, and I decided I wanted to work for the private sector. That to be honest with you, I got tired of the government at the time. This was at the time there was a lot of budget cutbacks, and the things I was interested in, the federal government was trying to kill. And I decided I wanted to work on the private side for a while. And I worked in marketing for Time Warner Cable. And I did that for several years, but I decided that I wanted to get back into serving people, doing things that I wanted to do. And in 1988, I took a position with the Austin-Travis County Private Industry Council, which is now known as workforce boards that are funded under the Workforce Investment Act of the federal government. And they're designed to help people find employment. And they hired me to design and implement a dislocated worker program, which is dislocated means that a person loses their job because the industry cuts back. And that was really good. That was a fun program because people get laid off, and it wasn't their fault. It wasn't like they were fired. They were just laid off through no reason of their own. And this was an effort to help them get back into employment. And it was really an enjoyable thing. I think we placed about 350 to 400 people in work over a 2-year period with that program. And it went on. And of course, the Workforce Board is still in existence now. But in 1990, I was asked by the Center for the Study of Human Resources here at LBJ School to join them in a project where we looked at implementation. It was a project funded by the Texas Workforce Commission to look at consolidating all of the employment and training programs that were administered by the state in Texas. And there were at least 5 different state agencies that were administering job programs at that time. So it was a very disjointed effort. And that project, we looked at how the different programs could be consolidated and joined together for better, not only being efficient, but being better for the customer, the client at that point. And that led to passage of legislation, believe it or not, when the state legislature did something good that integrated employment and training programs in Texas, and certainly conceptually made it easier for Texas citizens to access those programs. In 1991, I went to work for Goodwill Industries here in Austin. They hired me to design and implement what we called the Older Worker Program. I was still young enough at that time that they wondered whether I was old enough to run the Older Worker Program. That wouldn't be the case anymore. But that was a program that helped persons that were 50 years of age find employment. There's a lot of people either lose their jobs or they retire, and then they want to go back to work, or they have to go back to work, and it's really, really tough. I mean, a lot of those people have never had one position all their life, and that was a program where we tried to give persons skills, help them find jobs and keep their jobs, and that was really good. I also designed a program where we call it the Wheels to Work program. And everybody gives to Goodwill's. You can give cars to Goodwill. Why not? And a lot of people did, and we marketed, give us your cars, and what we would do is fix them up, and then we would give them to somebody who was usually a single mom that had been on welfare but had found employment, but she needed transportation. So it was really a win-win thing, I mean, for people, and that was fun to do. In 1997, I went to work for the Texas Association of Goodwills. There's 16 Goodwills in Texas, and they hired me to do to run their public policy effort. And by what that meant doing was, for the Goodwills, I kept up with any kind of happenings at the state and legislature that had to do with what Goodwills did. Nonprofit law, employment and training law, things about things of interest concerning persons with disabilities, that sort of thing. And I did that for a couple of years. The most exciting part of that was being a lobbyist. I never thought I'd be a lobbyist, and I've got to say I didn't have a ponytail at that time. But Goodwill wanted a certain piece of state legislation passed because there was a program that helped persons with disabilities find employment, and the program was really in trouble politically. It was about to be killed, and I worked along with the other Goodwills on, and a lot of other people within the state, to save that program and to reform the program structurally to make it more responsive. And the program was saved, and that was one of the most challenging things I've ever done, was leading the lobby effort, working with the legislators to get a piece of legislation passed in that area. If you're working for big business, you have a lot more access than if you're working for people with disabilities. In 2002, I took the position of Director of Development for Goodwill Industries in Austin. That meant I was in charge of raising money for the Goodwill programs. That meant I looked at tried to find federal money, state money, local money, foundation money, individual things, all of that. One of the great things about Goodwill is that it's based on a business model. I mean, most everybody knows that you can buy stuff at Goodwill. It's recycled goods, that sort of thing. But what a lot of people don't know is that the profits from that go into programs to help people find employment, persons with disabilities and persons that don't have employment. And it was a good thing. It was good to be a part of developing money to supplement what we were doing and try to serve as many people as we can. I think at the time I left Goodwill, we were serving about 2,000 people a year. I think it was 500 plus per year into employment. So that was a really good gig for me. And I've got to tell you, I love working at Goodwill. The nonprofit place is a place where you can really have a lot of influence as an employee. One of my personal interests that goes all the way back to the LBJ school was I was interested in ethics within an organization, and the executive director of Goodwill, and he and I talked about ethics, and we decided that we wanted to try to make Goodwill a more ethical place. And how do you do that? So I guess you would say I was director of ethics for a while, although that wasn't what my job description said. And we tried to implement a lot of things to make employees more cognizant of making the right decision, doing the right thing, as opposed to the easy thing. And I was really thrilled, and Goodwill was pleased. In 2004, we were awarded the Ethics in Business Award for Austin for nonprofit corporations, and that was a great thrill for me personally and for Goodwill. And which brings me up to 2005. In 2005, I retired from Goodwill. At that time, I'd spent 40 years working on programs for the disadvantaged and the low income from 1965 to 2005. And I just, at that point, I felt like after 40 years, I've done just about all I can do. There's not going to be anything new. And my wife is an artist, is a painter, and she's a very good painter. And I decided that I wanted to help her instead of staying with the nonprofit. And now I'm a business manager for my wife. She's an artist, a very good one. She paints oil paintings. We're in 10 galleries. Work with 3 art consultants. We have a publisher. It turns out I didn't retire from Goodwill. I changed jobs because working with my wife is a full-time job, but it's very enjoyable, and it's something that I'm glad I did. A few lessons that I've learned as I look back. My advice to you is to, when you find yourself employed, do 1 or 2 really significant things every year, things that have never been done before, like get a huge grant, or pass a piece of legislation, or do something that nobody's ever done in your agency or employers, and do that every year so that you're recognized and you stay kind of in the limelight. Do things that nobody else has done for them before. Another thing I would recommend that you do is, one of the things that I did was I found I tried to figure out the purpose of life, what life meant to me, and what I came up with was that it's 3 G's and 2 L's. Maybe it's 3 L's, but you want to love yourself and love others around you. You want to learn. You want to laugh. You want to give to others and give to yourself, and you want to grow every day. Read, attend things, learn things. Of course, when you get through with school, you may think you're tired of learning, but keep learning all the rest of your days. If you're interested in nonprofits, there's a lot of places here in Austin and other places that you can go to work. I really have enjoyed working with nonprofits. That was probably the best part of my life. The thing about nonprofits is that you really can find a place to follow your passion, what you care about as a person. And it can range from animals to education to children to older people. Whatever is your passion, you can follow it. And I'm thrilled that the LBJ School has looks at nonprofits and philanthropy now. They didn't do that when I was going to school, and I'm thrilled that they're doing that. And I hope some of you will consider working in nonprofits. I think that's kind of my long and winding road. It's as I said, it's really great to be here. I want to wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving because we all have a lot to be thankful for. Thank you, and I'll answer any questions if you want. Yes.
You don't have to answer if you don't want, but what do you, when you look back, what is one thing that you kind of wish you did? I mean, maybe just in the workplace, but like one thing that you're like, man, I really should have done that. And I guess it's more along the lines of kind of a lesson learned, but one thing that you were,
This is probably not the answer you expect, and I'm speaking only for myself personally. I wouldn't have drunk alcohol like I did. I think it really kept me back in a lot of cases, and I quit drinking 22 years ago. So it's and my life got so much happier after that. I think that's maybe the answer I would give you. I mean, that was my escape. We all have escapes, and we need escapes some, but don't let them become compulsive things. That's my answer. Yes, sir.
Did you ever meet with the Roswell superintendent?
Never did. Never did. Thank you. We ended up funding a Head Start program out there, but I never had the pleasure or displeasure.
What was your favorite class?
Here?
Yeah. No, let me rephrase that. What was your favorite and your least favorite class?
Well, my favorite class here is, it's easy for me. I started to say he's not, the teacher's not here anymore, but none of the teachers are here anymore. There was a great professor here, Dr. Emmett Redford, who taught policy, and that was my best class. I really liked it. He was a great teacher. My worst class was political economy. I didn't understand it before I entered the class. I didn't understand it while I was in the class, and I don't understand it now. But if I have a question, I know who to ask. Yes.
I don't know how active you stay with the LBJ community, but have you read the strategic plan, and what do you think, and what about the renovation plan? Do you have any suggestions?
I must beg off on that one. Since I entered the world of art, I'm really into that totally now. I'm not going to tell you what Chris has told me about it.
I mean, the bad part.
So I thought you were going to tell them about what happened to OEO and who came in to dismantle things under Nixon in '71. You left and he came in.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky. Are you talking about Howard Phillips?
And
course.
Donald Rumsfeld.
Yeah, and that's true. Rumsfeld was there for a while. Of course, that was under Nixon, and I had left. I'd left OEO to come back to LBJ school, but things just got worse and worse. And Rumsfeld was in his 30s then, and had been I think he'd been a congressman in Illinois, and Nixon appointed him. And I was glad not to be there. I was glad to be at the LBJ school at that time. They killed the agency, but they didn't kill the programs and the community support for the programs, and a lot of them are still going today. Yes.
I was just curious, what in your opinion, I guess the best way to achieve more community development, whether it's through nonprofits or CDCs, or whether it's through just workforce development programs, or...
If you're interested in development, fundraising, that type of thing,
More like community economic development.
well, my advice would be to go to work into development anywhere you can, to start and learn what you have to do and what you can't do, what you're supposed to say, what you're not supposed to say, that sort of thing. Learn about communities, how they work. Then if you're interested in community economic development, if you're not able to get into a position right away, which will probably be the case, always be looking for it. And it turns out you may not be interested in that aspect of development, but other things. And there's a work. Development's very important to making change in this society. I mean, I'm really pleased that Austin is thinking and has structured ways to really try to get people to give to nonprofits. This I Live Here, I Give Here campaign that's going on. There's a real chance. I mean, the economics in Austin are really good, and try to get more people to give to make this a better community. Okay, guys.
Thanks for having
Class time.